Hey everybody, Tekking101 here. Just wanted to get something out here, guys. My Hero Academia review, that'll be out closer to probably Saturday. It's just one of those, particularly hectic, busy weeks for me. But whenever I look at the channel and I don't have anything up for like 3 or 4 days, I start to get a little antsy. Like, okay, I should probably put something up. So I decided to take a request I've been getting ever since I started the whole "What's the Deal" series, because I was intending this series, like, to be just a recap of all the Bankais that we got at the end of the series, because Kubo was sort of like rushing through them, like, okay, here's Shunsui's, here's Uehara's, here's Toshiro's new one, here's Kenpachi's. So I felt like, okay, we'll do a discussion series to go into detail on what these could possibly do. So they were mostly focused to be just the ones near the end of the series, or the ones that we had no idea what they fucking did, like Unohana's, right? I was planning on Ichigo's to be the last one, but people are like, no, you should do Renji and Rukia's too, and I'm like, alright, yeah, I mean, that's understandable, because those were revealed in the final arc, too. Renji used his Bankai, I think, 3 times in the final arc, his new one, so Zabimaru. Rukia only used her once, though. So there's a lot of speculation available there, and I've delved into that before. And, of course, I'm never one to shy away from a discussion about Rukia Kuchiki. As you all know, I'm just a little bit of a fan of her, just a tiny bit. So I decided, yeah, why not start off with this? Yeah, okay. So, with Rukia, let's just dive right into her Zanpakuto, Sode no Shirayuki. Now, this is weird, because the word retcon gets pulled out a lot, right? It really does. But I like to think in this situation, it's not so much a retcon, it's kind of the same way with Renji's Bankai, where it was like revealed to be like he didn't know what it really, like the full potential of it was until he was told by Hyosubi before he trained at the Soul Palace. So I like to think that Rukia is the kind of the same way, where not exactly the same way because she knew the name of her sword. It's just that the true ability she didn't access until after training in the Soul Palace, because basically what happens when she fights against Asnot is that she says this. Rukia states that her sword isn't like the ability to control ice like Toshiro's is. It basically just lowers the body temperature of the user, and then she can use a series of abilities depending on how low her body temperature is, and she displayed this with Asnot. The problem is how she used it in the before the time skip when she first showed up, like in the Arrancar arc against Leroy, when she actually was a Shinigami and she could use her Zanpakuto. The problem is when she used it there, a lot of the techniques she used seemed to be straight up ice manipulation. White Moon, Someno Mai, the first dance, that one was kind of okay. I mean, I like to think of that as like, alright, the entire area she's enclosed in, she makes that circle with her sword, and then everything in that area just drops below freezing, and then it just freezes all at once. That's understandable. But then she uses Hakuren, which is White Ripple, which is basically just summoning a wave of icicles to go, like, throw at your opponent. Like, that's something more similar to Toshiro's Hyorimaru. And then the weirdest thing is, she uses Shirafune against Aranjero after her sword was broken, and the ice reconstitutes the sword, and then it like freezes the entire area. So it seems to me like there was no question, before the time skip, that it's like, yeah, Rukia's ability is ice manipulation. Not the same exact way or on the same scale that Hyorimaru has. Hyorimaru is kind of like the king of all ice and snow Zanpakuto. But it's certainly ice manipulation. And in the final arc, maybe after training with the Soul Palace, we got something like along the lines of, it's not ice in the sense of she can just, like the same way that Toshiro can just like have weather subjugation. He just, freezes the moisture in the atmosphere, and then he can do all this crazy shit with it. Like he can summon ice dragons and ice clones and all this shit that can only be used one time and then immediately forgotten about. And that can bleed. Let's not forget that. Ice clones can bleed. Just whatever. But no, it wasn't anything like that. It's just cold. Like, she lowers her own body temperature, and then, she can freeze the water in the ground to make an ice quake, or she can go to absolute zero and freeze her opponent solid to the core. That's the kind of shit that she had. I don't know if you consider that a retcon. I like to think of that more as just, more training with her sword, getting to know her spirit a little bit better, and then she accessed the true abilities of Sode no Shirayuki, which might be even more deadly than the way she had it beforehand. Because she was kind of limited to the dances. The dances were cool, and they were very beautiful to watch and everything. Sode no Shirayuki is regarded as one of the most beautiful Zanpakuto, for the most beautiful of Shinigami, of course. So that's one thing, but they seem very limited. Like, Someno Mai, like, that would only, like, the only way that would be fucking useful is if you were some, like a dumb shit like D-Roy, who was like, I'm gonna jump in the sky! I'm like, alright, it's cool that I have this ability that can freeze everything from the earth to the sky. Hakuren was probably the most useful, but, you know, opponents managed to break out of that no problem. And Somenomai, Sanomai, Shirafune was just weird. It was like, okay, on the off chance her sword gets broken, it'll reconstitute her sword, and then it freezes the entire area around you, which I guess could have useful, you know, qualities if you want to make, like, an ice skating rink or something. I don't know. But then we get to her Bankai. We get to her Bankai in the final arc, Haka no Togame, White Mist Sentence. And this is the weird one. Unlike Renji's, where we got to see exactly what it could do, because he used it against his fight with, Maste Masculine. He used it later on when he fought against, when all the Stern Ritter jumped Ichigo, he used it to, like, clear out some rubble or protect Rukia from some rubble. And then he used it again against Yuha Bach. You know, we didn't get to see, like, everything it could do, but we got to see at least how it functions in battle. With, Rukia's, it was different. Rukia's was, like, more or less a one-hit KO move. Like, you ever play Pokemon, you have, like the move Sheer Cold, which just, like, it only works on a Pokemon that have, like, lower stats, but it's a one-hit KO, you know, sheer death move. That's kind of the impression I got with Rukia's Bankai, you know, because she only used it in the one chapter. She released it, and as soon as she released her Bankai, this, like, atom bomb of cold just erupts immediately, and, like, everything gets transformed into, like, Winter Wonderland. Everything gets frozen around her. Asnok gets frozen right to his fucking core and just dissolves away. Like, the wind blows and he just disappears into nothing. And the weird thing, though, about her Bankai is that Rukia seems to be frozen in, like, an icy shell. Because there was this one scene where she was releasing her Zanpakuto. And like, her skin around her hand, like, where she's holding the sword, it cracks like it's encaked in ice. Like, it's not just like it's kind of hard to tell, of course, because it's manga. It's all, you know, black and white. We don't get an easy way to tell. But from the way I'm looking at it, that's like, her skin is not her skin. It's like an encaked, like, her entire body, head to toe, hair and all, is encaked in ice. And when she tried to move her hand, it cracked, as ice would. So that begs the question, can Rukia move when she's using Bankai? Or is she stuck in, like, this frozen statue form? I don't know. Maybe it was just because she tried to release her Bankai faster than... Because it was, like, it's very delicate. Even with her Shikai, it's very delicate. She has to, like, ease her way out of the Bankai. And Byakuya even told her, like, let it melt slowly. Because if not, you'll, like... your cells will decay, or you'll break yourself from the inside out, or maybe you'll shatter. I don't know. Yeah. It's not actually too dissimilar from Ichigo's when you think about it. Ichigo's is like a clad-based Bankai where he wears the power. Same thing with Rukia in a sense, where she becomes encased in ice. Maybe, in a sense, she doesn't need to move to use her powers, because in this form, she's a Yukiona. She's a snow woman. That's basically the motive she's going for here. And with that being said, maybe she doesn't need to actually move and swing her sword anymore and, like, act like how Toshiro has to control ice and whip it and shit. In this form, she's just a frozen statue, but all of cold is like her limbs. She can manipulate all this cold at will. I would have loved to see a long, more protracted battle with her in her Bankai states. I would have loved to see that against just one of the Stern Ritter, or even against Yuha. You know, like, Yuha's about to step through the gate, and she's like, hold on a second. You know, Renji goes into Bankai, and that doesn't do shit. But, you know, Rukia goes into her Bankai, and that probably wouldn't do shit either. But it would be cool to actually see her again in that form. I love that about it. Yeah, so, but, you know, I'm going to say that it's just, like, from what we see so far, it's just, like, a one-hit KO Bankai. You know, you go into it, you got to be really... Because her sword, in general, has a lot of has a lot of drawbacks to it. You know, most Zanpakuto, honestly, they take a level of training, but they're not detrimental to the user, not necessarily. Like, when Renji first went into his Bankai, and remember Byakuya had that speech about him, like, it takes 10 years of training to truly master Bankai, which, by the way, it took 10 years for Rukia to become captain in the time skip, and everyone was wondering, like, so what, were they just, like, waiting? What happened in 10 years? Before she became captain? Why did they wait 10 years to make her captain? Because it took 10 years to master her Bankai, probably. So the way she uses it now is probably completely different than back then. Yeah, in that sense, though, with Renji's Bankai, Byakuya told him it takes 10 years of training, and Renji couldn't control it completely. Like, he couldn't get if he got the timing wrong, the whole thing got crumbling down. But it wasn't necessarily detrimental to him. With Rukia, even when she's in her her shikai state, if she one misstep with this power and she fucks up, like she said, when she goes to absolute zero, which, by the way, that's just a physics nightmare on its own, but if she goes into absolute zero, she can only stay in that state for 4 seconds, and if she stays in that state for longer, like she started to bleed, like her cells began to deteriorate, something like that. So it's a very scary type of sword. We haven't seen anything like that before. Like, there's other shikai that you got to be careful with, like Kaze Shini. Probably not something you can just whip around without some sort of training. Izuru had his whole deal with, like, you know, I don't like this sword because it's, like, you know, too grisly and you gotta fear death and all that shit and crap like that. Same thing with, you know, Shuhei in regards to that. And you have Byakuya's, like, safe zone where you have to be sure to not, you know, bring your sword into the safe zone. But Rukia's is, like, on a whole nother level. There, yeah. Something else I want to bring up, and I felt, this is just a personal thing for me, but I feel like the whole Absolute Zero thing should have been something more focused on Bankai, not so much. Because that's, by definition, like, as cold as you can fucking get. It's so cold, you can't reach Absolute Zero. I went into depth in this in the review, like, way back in the day, but it's not possible exactly to reach Absolute Zero, and I'm not going to go into the details on that. Now, of course, it's manga, it's anime, so of course you can go into Absolute Zero, but that should be like your end game, you know? It should be like, you go into Bankai and it's Absolute Zero. Okay, I'm fine with that. But it's funny because she uses Absolute Zero, freezes Asnot, but Asnot kind of just, like, rips off his, like the ice only froze, like 1 or 2 or 3 layers of his skin. You know, it didn't, and when she goes into Bankai, that's the thing that freezes him to his core. Unless you're going along something with, like, this is beyond mortal cold. This is like this is like the cold of, like, the 9th circle of hell. This is something on a whole other level, way beyond Absolute Zero. But it just wasn't explained well because her Bankai was really only shown in, like, half of one chapter, really, not even a whole chapter. And we're never gonna get it again, is the shitty thing. But if best case scenario, if the anime ever comes back, then I would like to see just, you know, number one, is it her entire body that gets frozen? Can she move when she's in her Bankai? What exactly the technique was that killed Asnot, you know? Because all that stuff was kind of ambiguous, little bit. Okay, well, that's all I have to say about Rukia. I mean, I could go on, but, you know, we all have places to be. But anyway, I should do, like, an all Rukia stream. All Rukia, 24/7, nothing but that. But what do you think? You know, retcon about her Shikai ability, you know, going from, like, ice manipulation to straight up just cold manipulation, the dangers her Shikai poses, what exactly her Bankai, you know, can she move and shit like that? You know, those are the questions I want to ask here. Next video is going to be Renji. I was also thinking, possibly, I don't want to run this series into the ground with just, like, every single Bankai, as I said, but I was thinking the one more Bankai we got in the final arc that we didn't get shit from, that would be awesome to, you know, theorize and shit. Chojuro Sasakibe's. The former lieutenant of the 1st Division, you know who you don't know who I'm talking about. Okay, he was the guy with white hair. No, not Toshiro. The guy with white... No, not Ukitake. No, I'm talking about the guy that had, like, no eyes in the manga, but they gave him pupils in the anime for whatever reason, and he had like the white thing on him. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, yeah, there was a guy named Sasakibe, and he had a Bankai no Kokujo Gonryu Riku, and it controlled lightning, and it was like the only lightning-based Zanpakuto in the fucking series, and it was really fucking cool, but we didn't get to see it that often. So maybe I make a video about that. Okay, I don't care. I'm making a video about that. Screw you guys. Whatever. I like Sasakibe. Later, guys.